McConnell, Republican of Kentucky, had another episode where he froze and was unresponsive during a news conference. It happened today in Covington, Kentucky.
What are my thoughts about what?
Running for re-election in 2026.
That's
Did you hear the question, Senator? Running for re-election in 2026?
yes.
All right, I'm sorry, you all. We're going to need a minute. Senator Benny.
Yep.
Right outside, so. Come with us. Okay.
Somebody else have a question? Please speak up.
What efforts is Daniel Cameron going to have to make on the campaign trails when Kentucky is over in November?
Senator Daniel Cameron, do you have a comment on Daniel Cameron?
Well, I think the governor's race is going to be very close. Far and away the best candidate we could have nominated. And the state has become increasingly Republican. In fact, the governor's the only Democrat left in Frankfurt. So I'm optimistic that Daniel will be our next governor of Kentucky.
The incident is not dissimilar from what we saw at the Capitol just over a month ago. Senator McConnell, who is 81, was hospitalized in March after suffering a concussion after he fell at a hotel here in Washington, D.C. Since then, CNN has reported on other instances in which McConnell fell that his office had not disclosed. Let's bring in CNN's Manu Raju and Dr. Sanjay Gupta. Manu, first to you. You know, obviously it's difficult to watch this. How is Senator McConnell doing now? What is his staff saying?
Well, his staff is saying that he is feeling, quote, fine. And they said that he was going to consult with a doctor before he had a second event in Kentucky, a private event later in the day. But there's no word yet on what the doctor told him, what the diagnosis was, or why exactly he froze. They did say that he paused because he was feeling lightheaded at that moment. That's a similar explanation that they gave back in July when he froze for roughly 30 seconds during that news conference. After that incident happened, I had asked McConnell whether or not that was related to the fall that he had in March, where he hit his head, suffered a concussion, broke ribs. He didn't say if that was the case, simply said that he is fine. So not much indicating about what no real response yet from his office about the underlying cause of all of this, but undoubtedly causing some concern. He has been on the phone, Jake, with some other Republicans, including the number 2 Republican, John Thune, someone who could potentially succeed McConnell as leader. Thune said that in a statement that McConnell sounded like his usual self, was in good spirits, but didn't provide any other details other than that, Jake.
All right. Sanjay, you're a neurosurgeon. I don't want to be rude about it, but that's not somebody who just feels lightheaded. What do you see in the video of this latest episode?
Yeah, I mean, what we see is someone who essentially is freezing, and this is a term that's often used when describing various neurological things. He's obviously freezing. He's not saying anything. His face is sort of frozen in that position, but also even his hands. If you look at that video, his hands are sort of really attached to the lectern. His aide comes over, tries to get him to raise his hand. He's sort of really holding on very closely. It's very, very tightly, I should say, to that lectern. You know, there's a lot of things that can sort of come to mind. The more you know about the various neurological conditions, the longer the list is. But certain things like stroke or things like that are probably less likely. He walks away and he's moving his arms and his legs as he walks away. Seizure is less likely as well. There's about 30 seconds where he appears to have some component of freezing. I think what really struck me, and I think Manu alluded to this, is that his aides don't seem that surprised by this. So we've seen this episode a couple of times, but you get the impression that it happens more often because this is something that they're used to dealing with. And if I remember correctly, as Manu has reported, last time it's not even clear that he saw a doctor after these episodes. So they don't seem like they're that entirely surprising. So while it's as you say, hard to watch. It doesn't seem like this is just lightheadedness. Seems to be something that is really ongoing. Someone who has a Parkinsonian-like condition, for example, whose medications are wearing off or something like that, that's something that could sort of explain this behavior. But as I said, Jake, it's a long list of possibilities here.
Yeah, and again, I don't mean this in a discompassionate way at all. My mom turns 81 literally today. My dad is 83. We all see the effects of aging, not only on ourselves. I'll exempt you from that, Manu, but on our parents. But this is concerning. The freezing up. What do you make, Sanjay, of both McConnell and his aides repeatedly asking reporters to speak up? That doesn't seem all that unusual necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, look, once you get over the age of 60, and I'm not there yet, but 1 in 3 people will have hearing loss. If you get to closer to 85, he's 81, but you get closer to 85, 1 in 2 people have hearing loss. But, again, I think to your point, these questions were pretty loud. He was able to hear them afterward. Is this more sort of being distracted by what else is going on in his body and his brain at that point? These freezing episodes, is it buying time in some way to allow him to not be freezing as much? So there's different possibilities here. It could just be hearing loss, which again is not that unusual, but it does seem like there's something more going on here.
And Manu, with Senator Dianne Feinstein having her difficulties, not to mention the discussions about the ages of both President Biden and Donald Trump, this is certain to renew conversations about our aging political class.
Yeah, and McConnell's future itself. I mean, he just won re-election in 2020. The question is, will he run for re-election in 2026? He is the longest-serving Republican leader of any party in the Senate history. The question is, will he continue to serve beyond this Congress? He says that he will serve for the next year, but what about the year after that? And if he steps aside then, that will open up a whole effort to try to replace him, a campaign, an effort that is already perhaps underway, according to some Republicans who are watching some of these potential successors very closely. So we'll see how that takes place. But a lot of questions about his future and after this moment, Jake.
Yeah, and our thoughts are with him and his